A big hello and welcome. It's Kate from Zen Stitching, and I'm super excited to be joining you again for another one of our chats with artists as part of the Making Zen event. Today, I'm so excited to be chatting with Kira McCoy, who is also Create Along on the socials. Kira, hello and welcome.
Hi, so great to sit here with you and chat.
Oh my goodness, it's so much fun. And we started our conversation off air and we've been going on all kinds of different tangents. So I thought it was about time we pressed that record button so that we
Yeah,
could capture some of it. And
yes.
I love that you're part of the Making Zen event because you're bringing a unique angle to what is a fiber retreat. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about what you'll be teaching.
Okay, so I am going to expand your mind a little bit into mixed media. And I'm a painter, an art teacher, a clay artist. I started as a ceramicist and I moved into polymer clay for various reasons, but the most important one is that you can do it really easily at home in your oven. And always love to stitch. So I recently started making, and I have it right here, these mandalas on canvas, right?
Wow.
So really fun stuff that I hope that you'll come and watch the class and really enjoy a different perspective on how to stitch things onto your fabric.
Oh my goodness, that is so cool. Just to see that you've taken the polymer clay, you've included it with some stitching and also a mandala. So it's kind of incorporating a whole lot of things that are near and dear to my heart. In addition to, I know our audience is absolutely going to love it as well. And I loved hearing that you were a ceramicist and you moved
Mhm.
into the polymer clay, one of the reasons being that it's so easily accessible. And I guess why that resonates so closely with me is because I also love to do ceramics, but the having a studio for clay and a
Mhm.
kiln and all of the mess and the dust that it creates, it's really difficult to do it in your spare bedroom, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah, no.
And so I'd love to hear a little bit about your creative journey on perhaps the ceramicists and how you moved into the polymer clay and where that's taken you as part of your creative journey.
Okay. So I went to school in Buffalo, New York. I'm a New Yorker originally, living in Florida. But I went to school to be a teacher, to be an art teacher. And actually, my family has lots of teachers, but also scientists and engineers, artists and musicians. So really
Mm.
well-rounded family. My grandparents were traveling opera singers. So
Oh.
my father was a biology teacher, and I'm the oldest daughter, so when it was time for me to go to school, I was like, well, I kind of wanted to be a biology major, but I also wanted to teach art, and I just decided art might be more fun, right? Um, so I went to school to become an art teacher, and in the process, I got acquainted with ceramics, which my first job in high school, I worked at a ceramic studio where I was pouring molds, cleaning molds, and doing firings for someone who taught ceramics. But earlier than that, when I was about 5, I was at a family friend's party, and I went downstairs, and like you were saying, it's a mess, right? Ceramics is a mess. So I went down the stairs into their basement, and I guess the woman, I don't know who it is now because I was little and I didn't ask my parents then, but whoever this was, a corner of the basement was dedicated to ceramics, and there was a wheel there, and there was clay splashed up on the walls. And I just kind of knew, I said to myself right then, I'm going to do that. And then when I went to college, I took ceramics 1 and 2 and just kept taking ceramics. And there was one of the classes where your final project was a series of work. You had to do like at least 4 of the same thing to demonstrate skill. So I
Mm.
decided I was going to make pouring vessels and cups. So I started with a pitcher and goblets, and then a teapot and teacups. And I taught myself a Japanese technique for making a spout because my teacher hadn't taught us that. And I just kept going. So when it was time to unveil your work for this critique at the end, everybody came in and put their 4 things on the table. And I had a whole 8-foot long table full of stuff because I
Wow.
had been in that studio till 2 in the morning every day. I was just
Mm,
obsessed. Um,
mm.
so obsessed that I made this beautiful sake set, and my teacher kept it and put it on display and wouldn't give it back to me. So who knows where that is now? But I also had wanderlust. So when I graduated from college, I kind of thought, well, you're right about you need a kiln, you need a wheel, you need a place to put it. Kilns are usually 220 power, which in the US we only have plugs for that for our like drying machine or the stove. So
Mm,
I never had a place to plug one in, and um I don't know. It just was something I couldn't do. So I discovered polymer clay in my early 20s and started making jewelry and never looked back. And then in 2005, I learned about Etsy and I started an Etsy shop and I made my first sales almost immediately that day because I was making little bracelets that had leaves on them and someone bought a couple of them, and that was encouraging, so I kept going. And then about a year into it, I met someone in Etsy used to have forums, and they did this thing called street teams where they were trying to get the word out about Etsy. And someone had posted, "Do you want to start a street team?" I said, "Yes," for polymer clay. And then she said, "Well, should we form a guild?" I said, "Sure." "Who wants to be on the guild?" "I do." Right? So the whole conversation kind of led me towards this other person who eventually we became business partners. And that Christmas, she had gotten an iPad, and like a little iPod, the tiny screen. And she was like,
mhm.
"Hey, there's this thing called podcasts. Do you want to do a podcast for Polymer Clay?" And I said, "Yes." "What's a podcast?" Right? So, because I love to be an early adopter and I love technology. And when someone says a word that I don't know, I go research it. So what we did, we both lived in Florida, so we met around the Disney area and spent a weekend together to make sure we liked each other. And then we just started filming video. And that
Mm,
was 2007. And we started Polymer Clay TV and Polymer Clay Podcast that year. And didn't have a business plan, didn't have anything to sell. We were just sharing polymer clay instruction and did a lot of interviews with all the big names who were doing that craft. And we started our create along shop, and that has just gone on. And my partner since retired because she was a lot older than I was, and now I'm running the ship.
mm.
And Create Along is a well-known name in polymer clay, and there are 800 videos on my YouTube channel now and counting because I keep adding to it. And I do host, you know, classes and all kinds of things in a place called Polymer Clay Classroom. And then the product side is called Create Along, and it's my life's work.
That's amazing, and to think back that this all started from a 5-year-old experience going down into a basement and seeing a wheel and the clay and just thinking to yourself, I want to learn that. How
Yes.
fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hooked up with a local, there's a local ceramic studio where I sometimes throw, because I don't have a wheel at home, but I do have a kiln. Because now I'm settled down. I've been in the same place for 8 years, so I stopped moving around everywhere. And now I have a house, so I can have my own equipment. So I
Mm,
dabble now in the ceramics, but polymer clay is still a major part of my craft.
mm, mm. And where do you find your inspiration from, Kira, when it comes to creating, especially on a day when you might kind of feel like inspiration is elusive?
Mm. Pattern and nature. I mean, most of my favorite patterns are botanical. And I say I have achieved Witch of the Woods level 100 because I live on 5 acres deep in the country in Florida next to a nature preserve. So I don't have any
Mm,
neighbors.
mm,
Horses live next door, and I have a horse who lives there. And I have birds, chickens, quail, and pigeons that we were talking about before you hit record. um, so I have, a little flock of birds here and dogs and a couple cats, but I like to do my nature immersion. That's where it comes from for me. I go outside and look at the stars, but I really, really love, I mean, I love pattern. I surround
Yes, I
myself with it. Yeah.
yeah, I was admiring the background there. It's absolutely delightful, and I can see that that's something that resonates with you, with the patterns and the
Hmm.
colors and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And Kira, would you say, because I always love to know more about artists' creative practice, would you say that you create daily, or what's your creative momentum like?
I am more of a spurt creator because I run a business and have stuff to do, outside of that. And a lot of times because I'm a Gemini and I'm a little bit neurodivergent, so I have a spurt of energy or inspiration and I'm like, okay, I have to make that thing. And I have to have the supplies, I have to have the ritual, um, I have to clean the space, I have to clean the mind, and then I sit down and I make the thing. And if it
Mhm.
takes all weekend, to complete it or all week, I'm famous for having no painting one day and 3 days later a completed painting, that's from having nothing to having it done. And I like to call that manifestation. Like I think that artists and
Mm,
crafters can manifest because you have an idea and you can bring it into the real world. Um,
mm.
and my tools that I sell are made on a 3D printer and I love it because I'm like, I'm manifesting. I'm manifesting a new tool. I thought of it, I designed it, and now it's a real thing, So I'm
Yeah,
definitely work in spurts.
yeah. That's I love hearing that, and I completely agree with you about creatives being manifestors. And I never really thought about it until I can't remember. I don't know, something the dots connected, and I'm like, yeah, that's true actually, because it goes from being a concept up here which is not visible in the world. It probably I personally anyway cannot I'm not very good at explaining my ideas. I have to create them and then share them, and
Mhm.
that's my way of creating, quite often, because I guess what starts off as a germ of an idea, by the time it's actually physically created, is probably so far different from the initial idea that I had just through, working with materials and techniques and
Mhm.
having creative mistakes and learning from them and going off on different tangents. So I really like hearing that you think of it as manifesting as well, because I think that is such a great way of describing it. And I also like hearing, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will also appreciate hearing that your creativity comes in waves, because I
Mhm.
know there's a lot of encouragement, and I think it's fabulous of being creative on a daily basis, but sometimes life gets in the way, and
Mhm.
despite best intentions, the creativity doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
And or there are kind of peaks and troughs
Mhm.
with the creativity, isn't there? So you'll have an idea and you work through it, and then you kind of need to. It's kind of one artist I was chatting to likened it to summer and winter, where you've got
Mhm.
those, areas of growth, and then it's not that you're not creating, it's kind of like winter
Yeah.
for the soul, where life and your creative juices are kind of getting ready for that next spring and summer, so to
Mhm.
speak.
I kind of liken it to the moon and the tides, like things ebb and
Mm,
flow, and the moon becomes full and it's like a time of potency, and then it recedes and it's a time of inward, so everything flows in cycles. And I think it's really important, especially as women, to just remember that you don't have to be on all the time.
mm, yes, such wise words of wisdom. Do you have any suggestions for people who are on all the time or have an inclination to be more on than off, how they can switch off or slow down?
I think just breathing and, go outside. I think we don't spend enough time outside.
Mm,
And sometimes I can get that way because a lot of my work for Create Along is on the computer. So I'll realize that I'm like, hunched over and I'll just say, okay, time to take a walk. Let's go check
mm,
the mailbox, which is, 300 yards away. And that's a nice long walk. Just getting outside and getting some sun on your skin. And also not beating yourself up and forcing yourself to be on all the time.
mm,
Allowing, I think we need to allow ourselves to rest and allow to take a break and allow time to pause because sometimes if you're pushing forward and hustling, it's hard to let inspiration come in.
mm. That's true, actually. That's a really good point. So you need those moments of quiet and reflection, whether it's outside walking to the mailbox or even just sitting outside and enjoying the sunshine if weather permits, and um, letting what's happening in the outside world embrace you. And
Hmm.
not to mention something that you mentioned, which is so simple, and the act of breathing,
Hmm.
stopping. Like I know we all do it, but most of the time it's an unconscious thing, really, isn't it? Rather than
Yeah.
something you think, okay, well, I'm just going to sit and take 10 deep breaths and
Hmm.
feel where I am in my body and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
I think that's
Yeah.
important because I think that a lot of times, if you do stop and say, I'm going to actually pay attention to my breathing, you'll realize that you're just like shallow breathing really fast and you're not nourishing your body. So it's so important to just, I like the 10 breaths, three if you feel like 10 is too many, just breathe
Exactly.
all the way in your whole body and it resets you. It does something to that big nerve in your body. It like calms you down.
Yeah, yeah. And like you say, three if 10 is too many, and even one, just one uh, breath consciously, like you say, big breath in, big breath out. It can just kind of make you reset and remember that there's lots of things happening in the world. You can kind of have to step aside from those thoughts.
Hmm. And I
Yeah.
think as creative people, I do my own fair share of consuming, right? Consuming Instagram and consuming Pinterest and just taking us a breath and realizing that consuming is not doing, right?
Yes.
So and then sometimes you get like overwhelm of ideas. Like I might have seen six different ways I want to do something, but I only have time for one. So then, stop the scroll and decide, pick one so that you can actually accomplish something. Because
Mm,
I just feel like as creative brains have this big capacity, we want to see everything, but we live in a world where like everything's at your fingertips and it can just, I feel sometimes it stops my creativity.
mm,
Scrolling on
mm.
Instagram overwhelms me sometimes. So I have
Yes.
to remember to take a step back, take a breath, go outside, put the device down, leave the phone in the house.
Step away from the screen.
Yes. Yes.
It's what would you say, warming perhaps to hear that you also experience those kind of feelings and emotions from looking through Instagram, because yes, it's great and there's so much out there, and like you say, you can get so much inspiration from it, but you can very easily, and myself included, get overwhelmed, and like you say, you kind of maybe want to do it all and then you can't, and you've got all these kind of like inner conflicts happening
Hmm.
as part of that. And one mantra that I must remember to say more to myself, and that is create before you consume, so that
Mm,
you're getting those creative juices flowing and you're doing what brings you joy before you're looking outwards and what's around us, because there is so much stimulation with where we look. And if you're if you're a creative person, you can see inspiration anywhere.
hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's I guess learning to turn it off or to capture those ideas before the overwhelm
Hmm.
really. really sits in or hits in. And
Yeah.
I loved, Kira, you said a moment ago that you had some habits that or rituals that help you get into your creative flow. Would you like to share some of them with us?
Sure. I mean, I really love to ritualize things. So one of my things here, I have this is called Zoom Mist, and the flavor is frankincense. So
Mm.
I don't know if anyone watching realizes, but frankincense actually, the scent of it, the essential oil, releases some kind of creative hormones in the body. So it
Mm.
actually will make you more creative. So I spritz my area and I take a few deep breaths. It smells really good. I like the smell of it. So that's one way. And then I have, if I'm doing like thinking or journaling or sketching, I have this really fun candle that has, it actually lights up. It turns different colors. It's like something new. It turns different colors as it's burning. So
Wow.
it glows. It's a white candle, but it has like an LED light in it. So when it's lit,
Yeah,
it cycles through the rainbow. I think it's really cool.
that's
Um,
fun.
and then I don't have it here now because I'm talking, but I have my coaster because I have my hot drink. And I'm a tea drinker and I have about 40 different kinds of tea in the kitchen. So, like I like to get in the zone, clean off the tables. Um, right now I'm inside my house in a empty like office room, but I have a she shed. So I have to go out there, you know, gussy it all up, clean off the tables and make sure everything's ready to go. If I'm preparing to film something, then I have to set up the lights and make sure the AC is jacked up because it's hot out there. It's hot here.
Mm. Mm.
And just like try to find everything that I want to use so it's right accessible to me. Um, and then I get started. So I don't tend to do a ton of sketching. I like to just jump in because I've thought about whatever I want to make for a long time. Like I have the ability to visualize. Some people can't do that, but I can visualize exactly what I want to do and then my hands do it.
Mm.
So, not a big sketcher, but I do like to journal. So I'll write, thoughts of where I'm going and center myself and then get started.
Mm. Would you say with the journaling that's a daily practice, or again, that's it happens as and when you're in the creative process?
Yeah, I'd love to say it's daily, but it's not. I have a stack of journals next to my desk here, and I do have the clear space for my morning, but sometimes I'm just not, I don't need to. So
Mm. Mm.
I allow my morning routine to ebb and flow with what I feel is necessary. I think that journaling is something I do when I am feeling either overwhelmed or excited. And I think
Mm.
overwhelm is to me, it's about receiving. Like I feel overwhelmed when I've received a lot of information, whatever, love, peopling, and then I have to get the energy out, and journaling sometimes helps.
Mm. Mm. That's so lovely. I love hearing that and how it helps you with so many things, particularly with overwhelm, because I think these days it's it's quite a common occurrence, really, isn't it? Overwhelm
Hmm.
from just everything that we have going on in our lives and this constant stream of busyness that
Hmm.
comes at us from all angles. And so that's really helpful to hear that that's one of the ways that you work through that and brings you back into a calm and centered spot.
Hmm.
I also enjoyed hearing that you, as part of your creative ritual or your process, is you do a clean first.
Hmm.
So I'm curious to know, is your studio something that is orderly and you have boxes and you put everything in? Or is it kind of a bit scrappy and here, there, and everywhere? Or I'd love to hear that side of your creative practice.
Yeah. So I have a 12 by 24 shed, and half of it is dedicated to art space. The other half is inventory for the company. So
Mhm.
there's a wall in the middle. And so, like, that 12 by 12 space has shelves all along the wall and a beautiful cubby of, I have these three pieces of furniture that have like the tiny drawers, all the little drawers, and they're labeled on the front. So there is a modicum of organization. The shelves on the wall are open shelves with like paints and all my, like, my glue guns, things that I need to grab. But then on those shelves are little bins, and those bins are like, I have this pile of stuff and I don't know what to do with it. It's going in the bin. So there's bins on the shelf and bins under my table that are like collecting bins that I have to go through every once in a while because I I'm not that orderly. I just know that if I don't put the glue gun back where I know it goes, then I'll never find it again, right?
Mm, mm. I love it. So you do have some systems where you like to put things, and even if it's just putting everything in a bin so that you've then got a clear space for the next creation.
Mhm.
It's really great to hear because I work in a similar manner. I admire people with nice, clean, orderly spaces and everything's organized, and that's something I aspire to. But the reality is, there's piles of books collecting on the floor, and then there'll be piles of ideas collecting on one table, and
Mhm.
piles of things on other tables because I know that if I put them away, the idea goes with them. So I have
Mhm.
to leave them out as a visual reminder, which is good, but it also means that because I don't have much time, the ideas pile up. Uh,
Yeah. I relate to that. I relate because on my office desk where I work in the shed, there's a little pile next to where I would put my laptop that's like things I need to address or redesign or whatever. And it's like, okay, the pile's getting big.
yeah, it does. It grows. So those piles of papers really do kind of have I don't know, they multiply overnight, I think.
Like
Mm.
chickens.
Like chickens, which is a lovely segue. I know we have alluded to it a little bit in our chat. You said moments before we jumped online that you had just gone and found some very special chickens. Would you like to share with us what they
Sure.
are?
So we were talking about chicken math, and I don't know if anyone watching has chickens, but I started with my sister had chickens, and she moved down here from the DC area with her family at the beginning of the year, and they brought 8 chickens with them. So it was a
Wow.
10-hour road trip with chickens in the back of the car. And immediately her husband built a coop because they were staying in a camper in my yard until they bought a house. So immediately built a coop, and those 8 chickens went in the yard, and I fell in love with the chickens. And then they bought a house around the corner, took the chickens with them, and I had no chickens, but I had a coop. So I got quail first because I didn't have any outdoor run for them and I wanted the little birds. So I actually have 10 quail. And then we still had the coop and laying boxes for the chickens. So I went and got 5 chickens. And then today I've been looking for this type of chicken called lavender Orpingtons, and I always miss them. People post them on Facebook here, and I always miss them. I always am like the third person in line. And today I saw the listing at about like 2 hours before we were jumping on this call. And I told the lady, I have to be somewhere in 2 hours. Can you meet me in half an hour at this spot? I jumped in the car, got the chickens, and came home with them. And they're cool. So I have 2 new chickens, and they are lilac gray color, and they are full grown, so they're already laying eggs, and I'm really excited.
Oh, they sound so beautiful, and I love the description of these lavender birds. Like you say, they're a grey, but I'd imagine they're still so very beautiful, and
Mhm.
they have such great personalities, from what
Yeah.
I can understand too.
Yeah, they're gonna
Mm.
be fun. These birds, the 5 I originally had, they are feral little beasts. They won't let me near them. They jump out of the coop and run around the yard every day. But these birds that I just got are friendly. They let me hold them already. I'm hoping
Mm.
that they'll stay closer to home and not free range all over the place. Because I found my chickens one day. I teach on Fridays at a private school. I teach art, and I was driving to work, and my chickens were down the road at the corner,
Mhm.
and I had to get out of my car and run out and chase them back in the direction of my house, and then I had to go. I had to leave. So I'm like, I hope they find their way home and not into someone else's coop.
Cheeky things. And I'm sure they bring you so much joy, even if
Mhm.
they are feral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Kira, um, thank you so much for joining me today and having a moment to chat about all things creative. I really think we could probably chat all day, but I am very mindful of your time. Thank you so much for sharing your inspiration and something that is a little bit different as a part of Making Zen. I know everyone is absolutely going to love it.
Yeah. I hope so.
Thank you for joining me in this creative journey. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And if you'd like to learn more about Making Zen, please check out the links below where you can find out all about the workshops, creativity, community, and all that kind of good stuff. Wishing you many happy hours of stitching.